There was over 2.5 years of work that went into this application, and we had a working group that was formed. We had probably 4 public meetings with a large community, and subsequently we had several working group meetings. And we met during the strike last year. We met with the developer. We met with the planning department. And there was points in time where we really weren't sure how this application was going to go. But then June came, and the planning department indicated that they were going to issue a positive staff report. And as many of you know, and my apologies, that's my phone, how rude of me. As many of you know, a positive staff report changes the dynamic of an application considerably. And so what we did as a community, and I'm going to present to you what I presented to the community so that you have confidence that we did come to an informed conclusion on this matter. We looked at the history of the application, the current status in light of the staff report, the options before us, the issues that were raised by the community, the risks and benefits of moving forward in a particular direction, and then next steps. Again, the history of the application, there's quite a bit of history on this site. I won't bore you with the details. Suffice to say that the original application that came in prior to my being elected was a building density of 11.2, and it did not include any podiums or setbacks. That was not approved by planning staff and subsequently denied by council. In 2008, an application was filed for a 20-story building. The density was 10.6 with a 4- and 8-story podium. The current application that's being recommended by staff is for a 17-story building. The proposed density of 10.2 with a 3- and 6-story terrace, as the planner mentioned. The area is zoned apartment neighborhood, and this is significant because what the official plan says is that in an apartment neighborhood next to a subway is where we want the density to go. And in fact, this council supported me at the OMB when there was an attempt to build into a stable residential neighborhood and put high-rise development on it. We were actually successful at the board, but the board said, you don't have to build in the stable residential neighborhood because you have an apartment neighborhood designation right by the subway that's underdeveloped right now. There's development opportunity there. Go build there. And that's what the board said. So, as I say, this was not a simple application for the community. And one of the key issues that were raised was the Stanley Knowles Co-op. Now, it's an existing building. There are 17 stories on the site, and what they were concerned about was their sight lines to the park because of the way the building's angled. It was a critical concern for the residents in the co-op. There was traffic, height, and density, and ensuring the building maintains a proper transition to the stable residential neighborhood to the north and to the west. So what are the options that the community looked at? We looked at deferring. We looked at doing what Councillor Walker suggested. We looked at deferring to City Council without recommendation. We contemplated denying the zoning bylaw amendment. And then we looked at approving the zoning bylaw amendments with additional amendments. The deferral option has absolutely no benefits, only risks. And the biggest risk to the community is that if the developer appeals to the OMB, there is actually no decision made by this council, and they will go with the original application, which is much higher, much denser, and has less of a transition into the community. The deferral option was dismissed out of hand. There was deferral to City Council without recommendations. This was considered because we would have had added time for community input. But again, there was risks. The developer could appeal under the 180-day rule to the OMB because, in fact, that is an option open to them because this application has been before the city now for over 2.5 years. We could deny the zoning bylaw amendment. We could deny it outright, and the benefit to the community was the clear statement that it was a difficult application and they just couldn't live with it. And we debated this option and we debated it thoroughly. But what we came back to was that there are more benefits for the community if we could make amendments at Community Council that would mitigate the impact of this development in the neighborhood. That was the decision that the community came to. And what were the benefits? We could minimize some of the impacts and we could avoid a lengthy and costly OMB hearing. So what did we do? What were the next steps that we did? We went to the Community Council, and I won't take more than my 7 minutes, thank you. We went to Community Council and we said, you know what? The 17-story building, it actually blocks the sight lines for the Stanley Knowles. So what the Stanley Knowles wanted was a taller, slimmer building. So we actually turned it into a 20-story building that was much more narrow. We talked about the concerns of the setback on the west side and the north side. Those setbacks were improved. We talked about the density being a problem. The density was reduced. We talked about the way that the building transitioned into the neighborhood. A floor was taken off the podium. We talked about the number of units being a problem, so we reduced the number of units. One of the key messages coming back from the community was that they wanted to make sure that some of the units were affordable. So we put in a provision that 5% of the units be affordable units. And the developer has agreed to that. We wanted to ensure the public space was adequately maintained, so we had a provision added at Community Council that ensured that that would happen. As for the library, we consulted with the library, and I can assure you, as have staff, through a correspondence labeled NY 3679A, that the development rights of the Stanley Knowles and Library are not impeded at all by this development. There is no concern there. And if you have any questions, I would welcome you to take it up with the chief planner who signed the report. There are no issues for the library. The only issues for the library is that they don't want to have to buy new blinds if residents move into the building and complain about the light. So we've added the library to the site plan process to make sure that doesn't happen. We brought these, the community came out and spoke to these amendments. They brought them forward to Community Council. Community Council unanimously approved the amendments that were before them. We had 2.5 hours of discussion and debate at Community Council. It's an informed community. It was an informed process. It was an informed Community Council, and this decision was unanimous. Please uphold the decision of Community Council. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Walker.